sink that remains below.
And I keep it there until there's nothing left of me. I gave up all the goals. I gave up. Man, that's a little too fast. But the thing that I think, what I really wanted to add, and what I didn't have enough time because I made this in 2 days, I really wanted to find a better top melody line, just kind of like, because I love the harp transition to the, and I always love the timpani rolls, you know, because it's this is the more of the, and then the, you know, these terrible sounding crashes. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then we just open it up. Probably in the actual one, I'll probably have to extend that a little bit more, but you get what I mean. Sorry, let me just, I don't know why I turned on TikTok live, just so I can fix some things here and there, but while I'm on topic, I do find it quite fascinating that the JJK community is absolutely using Don't Go Insane. I absolutely adore it. It's quite interesting because a lot of the John and Hugh, our dancer and choreographer, they're the biggest fans of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I think we're gonna have like a I guess you could call it a slumber party where, you know, I pretty much binged the whole series. You know what's so funny? Actually, nah, I should zip it. You know what's so funny? Oh, fuck it. Anyway, you know what's so funny? The JJK, God, nah, you know what, school, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. But anyway, so that technically, I just love the pluck, you know. Bum, bum, bum. I can make a challenge. So after I think extensively getting into JJK, I think what if should I cosplay that? No, I was kidding. I'm a terrible cosplayer. I don't look like any of them. So instead, I think we did, funny enough, we did oh God, I don't know if I can say this. You know, the funny thing is, before it even reached the JJK community, because we were such big fans of it already, well, my team was extremely, it's like their favorite. So we did make a couple of references to things that aren't out yet, but it's so crazy how that worked out. But I mean, once, you know, I'm pretty sure when you see it, you'll see it. You'll know when you know. But it was, you know, because because Hugh was such a big fan of it. So it was so interesting that it crossed as if it was like destiny, and it was something where kind of worked out in a very interesting way. So I'm so eager to drop that out. I'll give you guys more of that, you know, but that's kind of soon. very soon. So, goodness, it's getting quite dark, isn't it? It is getting quite dark. And Laurie is nowhere to be seen. But anyway, how are we doing? Oh, goodness me. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, a lot more stuff coming out. A lot more things that I'm prepping for. Just a lot of. I think life has been quite on the fast lane, not just for me but for my team as well. So, I think honestly, I do appreciate the team that I have right now. You know, I can only imagine how much shit they put up with me, with my spontaneous ass. Because the thing is, yes, friends and family, they do have quite the hard time keeping up with my randomness. But why not? Why not? Hello, darling. How are we? Thank you for existing. Thank you. Thank you for existing. I think we could all exist together. And if we can't, we should learn to coexist. Because we're stuck here, so. We're pretty much stuck here, so, you know, might as well make the most of it, right? Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, yes. Another thing I'd like to point out is, yes, absolutely. So this song that I think I was making, it was actually a care package for Mido. Maybe not to what's come from Mido 3, but kind of more like a side project for Mido. I think we've went into the lore of Mido and Insanity, but we haven't really touched down deep with the personalities. So, with that being said, this was kind of the I guess you could say one of the maybe we should do the lowest. And goodness, that's such a low octave for me. I have a pretty, which is quite funny because I know when I'm going back and forth with being Mido and stuff, I can sing at that octave pretty comfortably. But me now, I can't really reach that octave. It's kind of weird. It's weird, isn't it? I can reach a more lower octave as somebody else, but I can't really reach it with the state that I'm in now, which is quite interesting because I've always tried to unlock that in my brain, but I don't think you can do that. Yeah, so I mean, maybe I should just do the instrumentals. Anyway, just want to say, I hope you like Skins. I know it's just a demo, you know, obviously, but I think there's magic to something about the rawness of it. With it not being mixed and mastered, I sometimes think I'm too much of a perfectionist, which is why it kind of always led me to not really put it out the way it is. But I think there's some beauty in that, because a lot of times I think, especially nowadays, a lot of art, I think, has been so transcended into so many different layers. I think at this point it's become, I see it becoming something to uphold a certain perfection status in terms of how you should be physically, mentally. I mean, that's kind of what social media is really doing, isn't it? It's really narrowing us down to what we like to see and project. And what that projection really does is, obviously, you know, it makes us somewhat unhappy sometimes, when in actual fact no one's really looking at us. Everyone's probably going through the same thing that everyone else is, you know. So I think the more older I get and the more I realize is it's really, nothing's really permanent, and you make it with, oh, sorry, I can't even fucking talk right now. You make everything for what it is, a matter of perspective. So yes, you can, I always like to think, you have two options to look at things. You can always be succumbed by it, and you could always be succumbed by it for only 5 minutes and learn how to pick yourself back up. I like to always say, there's nothing wrong with feeling how you feel, right? But don't let yourself think that's permanent, the good or bad, really, because nothing's really permanent. So just like as much as your good times come and go, so does your bad times. And there's no point in suppressing how you feel. So you can feel it. But I always say, because it's something so temporary, I like to just pick myself back up after I vented, or, you know, had a little bit of a scream here and there, and then carry on. You know, and the things that I make, the things that I project, and, you know, the artistry that I do put out is a form of self-expression, and is a form of therapy, not only to me, but also hopefully to my listeners. A lot of the times people might think it's troubling music, but, you know, in a world that's already kind of troubled already, I feel like that's the least, well, that's the most, not the most, that's the least I can do. So yeah, it's allowing people to feel a bit. I feel like we've become so numb. Don't you reckon? I reckon we've become so numb. And I think feeling and being strong are totally different things. I think you can be strong when you learn how to feel it, and you learn how to adapt, and you learn how to accept it. I think there's a big difference when you learn how, you feel it, but you don't learn how to tame it. I think there's a difference, because no one's asking you to stop feeling. They're just asking you to accept it openly. Think about it. A lot of times we lash out or act out is because we suppress it. We suppress a lot of things. You know, I know for a fact, like, when I was younger, and you know, when I was in school, call me traditional or not, but I always had to learn to suppress a lot of my, I guess you could say, feelings here and there. But it's so funny, as when I was younger, when I was a kid, that seemed more manly, I guess you could say, more masculine, if you were to say. But I realized that strength doesn't really come from that. Strength really comes from learning to take it for what it is, adapting to it, and learning to make it yours. Because again, suppressing rage and anger and any type of negative stress or feeling that you have never surmounts into anything good. You always end up blowing the bottle at the most wrong times, and that's when you start feeling regret. But again, it's what makes us human. No one's perfect. We're almost perfect, I reckon. But I don't like to think people are perfect, because that doesn't really make sense. You could define perfect on your own terms, and I think that's what you should do. I think everyone's unique. That's why there's so much you can learn from. I go into a conversation openly with anyone, keeping my mind open, because I always think I can learn something from somebody, even my enemies. That's not to say I have enemies. Well, maybe I do, but I just don't know about it. But maybe I think your enemies are your biggest fans, really. You know, I remember at a time, especially when I quit being an idol, I was succumbed by absolute rage, and my mind was just filled with spite and resentment. And honestly, if I was being completely honest, that's the amount of trauma and amount of things that I kept buried while I was doing an idol. It really, I think it really broke me inside, because for me, I think that was the moment where I learned how to put a mask on, and I took so much shit in, I didn't know where I was burying that under, only to realize it turned into another beast of its own. So take it from me, if you don't learn how to look under the rug, it's going to be a little too late for you. When it surmounts into something big, it's going to turn into something. And that's when, you know, you might not even know how to feel it. You might not even not know how to accept it. So that's how I like to think. So again, when I was younger, I was very filled with spite, rage, and I never really forgave people, because I was always in spite because of what I thought people did to me. It's kind of like if you put like a dog in the wrong environment, and you take it, you starve it for so long, at that point it doesn't become a broken dog mentally, or sorry, it doesn't become a broken dog in a weak way. It becomes a very spiteful dog, and you know, all it can ever think about is lashing out, or when they could lash out. So that's what I like to think. I learned how to find something that was bigger than me, you know. So you know, the outcome of that was DPR, and if I look back at it, I think it was so necessary. Every moment is quite necessary in your growth. You gotta learn to be bad at something, and you gotta learn to accept being bad at something for you to even remotely grow, right? So yeah, I think that's what I started learning to do. I started learning to not really look back at it and regret it, and say, you know, I wish that never happened to me. Because I think at a moment in time when I was in that, or you're pretty much clouded by that rage. So what can you really see? So you have to live through it. You have to go through experiences. I always say this. They say age isn't a number. You're right. It isn't a number, but it still doesn't. That still doesn't deny the fact that time is always ticking, and we don't stay here forever. So even accepting that idea, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing, because you know, you learn to appreciate your moments more and more. The more I realize is, the more I can. It's so funny. You know, a long time ago, if you were to tell me that this would be my life and this is how it would end up, more broken or not, I probably wouldn't know how to take that in. Because, or maybe, I don't know, maybe vice versa, maybe I would have been extremely happy. So I like to think sometimes I'm thinking too much of what needs to be done and what I have to do, that I don't really learn to accept my moment in time right now. And it's such a hard thing to do. It's so easier said than done, because you know, people are well, for me personally, I'm a bit of a feeler. I'm very sensitive. So if you're that type, you obviously know as soon as you walk into a room, you know if someone's off. You know if your other people's comfort is at the expense of your comfort. So you know what I mean by when you're a bit sensitive. And you know, for me, the longest time I always thought because I was like that naturally, I just thought maybe that's what was fucking me over all the time. Maybe that's what was really taking from me. And I know at a certain point in time, I tried to renounce it. I tried to change it. I tried to denounce it. I tried to rewire my brain, and because I hated that trait so much, I hated giving so much, and I hated things being taken away from me constantly. So I thought always, like, the more I give, it's always gonna end up happening where I get pretty much taken away a lot more than what I think I gave. And I think that's where it starts becoming a thorn, when you start comparing it. When you start saying to yourself, have I not done enough for these people? Or have I not done too much, right? That's when you start getting a little toxic to yourself, and you blame the environment for it. I bet you 100% you know, and I'll tell you people, I'll tell you everyone, dreamers and non-dreamers, saying you appreciate somebody that you know is going out their way, even just once a month, can go a long way for people that love giving, because that's really all they need. It's so funny. All they ever really need is a thank you, and it's the hard. And I tell you why that's so hard for givers to even want. It's because givers can't ask. They're really bad at asking. Are they really bad at asking for help? They're really bad at asking for things. Again, it's you put yourself in a little box like that. So hey, take it from me, I'm still learning, and where I'm at right now in my mind is, I think I'm absolutely complacent with the idea that I love giving to people, and the thing is, the more I give, the more I accept this trait of mine, the more I realize it's bigger than me, you know. But again, maybe it's because I've lived through it. Maybe it's because I've come of age. I'm talking as if I'm an old man. Well, maybe I am, but but maybe I am. But you know, maybe it's because I think I'm at a point where life is too short, just kind of worrying about all of that shit. You know, I think it's so nonsense. You know, I think that, God, I would hate to be at the start of my 40s and still feel some type of resentment or spitefulness for the life I've lived. I would hate that. I think I could feel happy now if even if I wanted to. I think it's a feeling, but sometimes you got to put yourself on it. You know, just like you put yourself on movies and snacks and sweets and all that. It's a feeling that you might rather think it's quite more easier to come by than you believe. I like to think, and again, one more thing is, sorry, I'm going on this freaking TED Talk thing. One more thing is, what I've learned was, don't assume that it's malice. Just assume that it's ignorance. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people like to jump into straight assumptions, yeah? So, and I think those assumptions that people immediately think it's malice is the very reason why we start creating scenarios in our heads of that other person or of these situations, and we're, you know, funny enough, people are quite pessimistic these days, so they'll create a completely jarred falsehood, and you know, sometimes maybe you're right, but most of the times you'll be surprised All you ever needed to do to conclude that situation was to go and talk to him. And it was just as easy as that. People need communication. You never know what I'm thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. And that's valid. It should be like that. So therefore, I'm not going to assume anything about you. Even if I know you for 8, 9, 10, 20 years, I'm never going to assume what makes you happy. I'm never going to assume what makes you mad. And I'm never going to assume what makes you anything, because I'm literally then putting you in a box. And if I put you in a box, it's not fair for you, because what if one day you start acting out of that box? And by your reason, you're completely valid to do that, because people change and people go through things. I'll never know what you're going through unless you tell me. But again, if I put you in that box, immediately I'm going to be checking off these things where if you start acting like this, I'm like, oh, I'm going to feel like you're odd. But I always thought that was so weird, because, you know, how are you going to dictate somebody's, how somebody is and how somebody feels, and then, you know, gaslight them when you don't feel like it's according to your ideas of their traits of such, you know? So I never like to think I know people, right? I never like to think I know them, because I think it's respectful in my manner to never assume that I know this person. It's not a bad thing. I think it's quite a progressive thing, because again, I also apply this to myself. So what does that mean? I don't like to think I know myself, right? Because the minute I feel like I know myself, then immediately I know what makes me happy and I know what makes me sad. But now this is another thing. There's one thing to know yourself, and there's one thing to know what makes you happy. But there's another thing to fixate that happiness on something that's really far-fetched. So if I say, oh, and again, this is what social media is doing. If I look at something and I think, oh, I need this. I need a Lamborghini, or I need this lifestyle to make me happy. There you go. You've already put yourself in a box. You've already outlined you need this to be happy, and if you don't have this, you're never gonna be happy. When in actual reality, if your friend comes along and gives you an ice cream, that's fucking happiness. But you don't like to think of it like that, because for you, happiness seems to be something so much more. And once it becomes something that people, once it becomes I guess you could say, at the expense of other people's happiness, I think that's when it kind of gets, you might get a little quite jumbled up there. Trust me, it's happened to me. Sometimes it still happens to me. It's very hard. It's a hard reminder. You know, it's one of the beauties of living in a society. You know, I guess that's why they call it a society. You know, we learn to bring forth ideas, and again, I think this is such a important thing, because I feel like nowadays it's so we lose ourselves too much in our own heads, I guess, you know, and communicating has become less valuable, because it's become more what do you call it? Oh fuck, I can't even think right now. My brain's so fried, sorry. It's become more accessible. This is what I think. I think the more something becomes accessible, the less it becomes valuable in today's society. If I give you an example, what does I miss you mean? What does I love you mean nowadays? What does it mean to be loyal compared to how we were when before I was born? Let's say my parents' era. You know, if you literally loved someone back then and you couldn't see them because you didn't have iPhones or FaceTimes or whatnot, you will literally feel that much more obliged to want to see them, and you literally mean that miss you factor will mean so much more, because you would have to go through your day and come back and then be able to see it. So I feel like because of that, people learned how to cherish and value that relationship a little bit more. I think the further we go into accessing, like, I can always FaceTime somebody, I can always see my favorite artists on screen here, it becomes a less likely factor for you to feel that type of value from that, you know, if you get what I'm saying. So for me, I think we've desensitized ourselves, and you know, change, I love change, don't get me wrong, change is a beautiful thing, but again, it's at the expense of something, right? And you got to sometimes think, what is it at the expense of? I know people are really scared of change, and that's completely valid and fine, because I am too. It's learning to really accept it, right? But it's also learning to not forget along the way what makes something so valuable. You know, I mean, we see it happening all the time, really. It's doing it to the art, it's doing it to relationships. It is becoming quite destructive, if I was to say. It's a little unfortunate, but you know, for the most part, I think while we're here, while we're still here on the ride, I think the beauty in this is at least we're all here together, right? And we probably came the same way, we're probably gonna go the same way. So, you know, for what it's worth, I'm extremely happy to be here with you all. I'm extremely grateful that we're all here together right now, right? With that being said, it's easy to die, it really is, but it's really hard to live, right? So that's why I'm saying you got to learn to be grateful for your life, and it's so easy to just give up. It really is. It's a lot harder to live, and some people might agree with that or disagree with that. But I think the reason why we're so compelled to live is because we all want to somehow connect, and we all somehow want to feel like we exist and we are seen on such a huge, I guess you could call, a huge plane of existence. I don't know how to really put that into words, but you know what I mean. And for the most part, I think there's a lot of beauty just being in these moments, and just taking a step back and really breathing in what's in front of you, because it could be gone, it could be taken away anytime, and I like to live like it's my last every single time. Maybe that's what I do, how I do everything, really, right? And again, it's not something that you should really like dwell on. I know I'm an overthinker. I think way too much. So I never give myself more than 10 minutes to think about something that might potentially ruin my day, because I go down an extreme rabbit hole as such. But again, it's because I'm aware. I think you have to sometimes, once in a while, check yourself. If you don't check yourself, let your friends check yourself. But sometimes that ego of yours, you've got to learn how to tame it. It's not wrong to have an ego. I think that's somewhat of a self-defense mechanism of being proud of yourself. But I think when it gets tainted, it's only because people start testing it in a very malice way. And that's why I say, don't assume that it's malice, always assume that it's ignorance. Because from ignorance, I think you truly know how to win somebody over when you change them, not when they change you. If you feel like from a certain talk or a certain conversation you had, you feel more bad intent to somebody, and because of that, it's not leaving your head, then that person has ultimately changed you and is now over you, I think. Again, for me personally, I like to think I win somebody over by allowing them to accept the change and see it from my perspective. I don't think it wouldn't, and some people might not give a shit. Some people are like, once I'm done with this person, I'm done. And that's fine. To each to their own. For me, I know I'm the person that has it in the back of my mind. I care too much. So yeah, that's just kind of I know I went on a bit of a rant there. I think, ironically, I said I'm not going to talk too much. I mean, I'm not going to think too much, but I'm thinking out loud here. So, you know, give me a bit. But anyway, that's kind of it. So I just want to say I appreciate it. Skins was a song, again, that was made completely at one of my most vulnerable states, which is why I think more the reason so I think I've learned to develop my stage of accepting to even be remotely be able to put this out there. Because for me, that if you ask me even 2 years back, I wouldn't even have the guts to be able to do that, because I was for me, if honestly, if I was being completely honest, it's so hard for me to talk about certain mental health and stuff like that, because I've always found it very embarrassing for me, for myself. And I'm saying this because I just want to be completely honest. It isn't something that I've always felt comfortable, not even on this, but just amongst my friends and families, I think, which is why I've always had to disconnect with them, because it's kind of like this. It's you know, some people get to choose not to show their vulnerable side. Like, you get to choose, you know, your deepest, darkest secrets, and you know your deepest, darkest moments of yourself, and you get to choose not to show that to people sometimes. Well, I hope so. But sometimes, for me, I can't choose that, and every time I'm out of it, I mean, they say it's okay, but I'm honestly floored because of embarrassment. But anyway, because of that, you know, I think I've always learned to hide it. I have never been a good asker. I can't really ask. I'm terrible at asking for things, because deep down somehow I feel like I don't deserve it enough. So I have that trait of mine. But at the same time, if that gets tested too much, then you become someone that just wants to take. And I've been there. I've been in one of my most darkest moments to realize that's so far from the truth of who I really am. And I think you have to get to that point. I hate to say it, but I think for people that are kind of very similar to me, you have to get to that point to realize that it's so far from the truth of what you think you are. And it's going to break you down. It's going to tear you from limb. But once you realize, when you start getting sewn back up, you realize, oh, I've always been this type of person. I've always been here. And that's why I say cherish your lows as much as you love your highs, because I think your lows is where you really learn how to transform yourself into transform and grow into the person that you should become over time. You know, I think that's what makes you a fighter. And that's why I've never detested my lows. I've never, I have detested it when I was maybe in high school. Because again, you know, puberty and all that shit. What do you know? You just want to run away, or every single time someone says some shit to you. So for me, I've learned to hate it, go down there, have a conversation, come back up, go back down, hate it again, detest it, try cutting it down, try avoiding it, only to go back down again. And then realizing that all hope is lost, and this is kind of what my life is going to be looking like. And then coming out of that, realizing, oh, I'm looking at it from a different angle. I've always been looking at it from a different perspective. And that has always, it never is what you really think it is. So I look back and I think, I used to look back and I used to think, man, look at all the shit that's been done to me, man. Look at all these fucking scars. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I'm never like this. I was never like this. I look at myself and I look down and I'm like, I can't believe half the things that I've done on my body, and I can't believe half the things that I've dealt with. And I was always so pissed off at the state I am in, because I always thought that was never me. I always thought that was just so far from who I think I really am. So I've always detested it, and that was where my first thought went to when I thought about the past. But now I look, and then, you know, it's so funny, and then I look again. I don't look at me, all right? I don't look at me this time. I look at through these, I look at what has happened on the flip side. I look at the people's faces when I go on stage. I look at the conversations that we have about the most inspiring things that I hear. I look at my team. I look at the life that I can provide them. Sometimes I look at the just the friends and families just cheering me on, you know, backstage. And you know, I just sometimes see, and I look at this community that is very present right now, and you know, and then when I see that, I'm like, oh shit, you know, maybe it was so necessary. It was very needed, and it was very something that I can finally now find peace in, because it's something that I think I've always had trouble with finding some type of, you know, connection with. Because again, I always thought, man, I hate giving so much to the point where I think people are just going to take again. So, but again, that's my nature, and what can you really do about that, really? So I learned how to accept it, because I've learned how to look at it from a different spectrum. And you know, for what it's worth, even if you have just one friend telling you thank you, that makes a world of a difference to somebody like me. A world of a difference. I don't need no fancy cars. I don't need no freaking money. I don't need any of that shit. I just need sometimes to be, I guess, appreciated. I think that's what the word is. I think people need to be appreciated. But you need to communicate. I think that's key. If you don't know how to communicate with people, then it's I've always thought you got to make the effort to. And if you don't make the effort to communicate, then you shouldn't complain, because you know deep down what you should do. But sometimes you might think, oh, it's so hard, it's so easier said than done. You're right. So then let yourself feel it, let yourself go through it, and then once you come out of it, I think that's when you're ready to move on. More and more slowly. Go at your own pace. Everyone has a different pacing. Don't expect everyone to go at the pace that you're going, and vice versa. So again, don't assume it's malice. Always assume it's ignorance first, and then if it turns out to be guilty, and if it turns out to be somewhat of malice, then again, I'm sorry, it's unfortunate, but again, it's kind of weird, but you have to feel like there's some type of there's always blessings in disguises. Everything's a blessing in disguise. Everything. You just got to look at it from that perspective. But it takes time to get there. I believe. I'm still learning. I'm not really good myself, but again, it's something that I feel like I want people to understand. I want people to know. As dark and as broken as my music might sound, you gotta understand, it's not telling people to be broken. It's telling people to feel it and move on. And I like to believe my life is an experiment of that, and I am putting on that show. I never want to ever pedestal something, or you know what I mean. I never want to advocate for something or pedestal something, because I'm not anywhere near knowledgeable in that field as you are. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a professional psychologist, so I can't really recommend what helps and what doesn't. But I can provide you some insight on my journey and what I go through, and And for me, as long as I'm real with that, and as long as I show progress, I think there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like I said, some people just want to be seen. And for the people that just want to be seen, they'll never ask. I know that for a fact. So, this one's for you guys. Yeah. This one's for everyone. Yeah. So, again, thank you so much for being part of this TED Talk. It was absolutely marvelous, especially after the spontaneous drops of skins. I'm going to look at the JJK thing a little bit more. You know, I love seeing it, guys. So if you have more, make more, because me and my team, we love watching it. We might do a reaction video to it. We might do a reaction to all of them. That should be quite fun, actually. Who would have known, eh? But yeah, I'm here for it. You know, maybe next time I should go to like Comic-Con or something, Anime Expo. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and we have a few more surprises. You know, a few more surprises here and there. It's a bit it's kind of funny because, you know, you might think this guy never rests. Well, I do. I do rest. Well, hopefully, I feel like my schedule's gonna end next year, March. I'm already looking at it like that. But, you know, it's because I'm good. It's because I can. I love it right now. I don't, you know, it's not hectic or it's not hard. I'd rather do it right now. So for all the new listeners and the newcomers out here, welcome. I welcome you to the show. I'm not too much of a complicated person. I'm rather more of a simple person, although my music and my law might seem quite intricate. But no, for me, it doesn't matter if you really get it. It matters if it means something to you in any other way, personally. So you can do it with it as you please. Like I said, I'm only here to put on a show. And you're welcome to come and stay, and you're welcome to go. So, again, it's, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, there's no, yeah, I don't really know what else to say, really. I just realized, though, I do realize that TikTok has so many things on their live. Like there's like these interesting filters. There's something that has 4K. There's something. I you know what? Before I didn't know you can turn off the whatchamacallit. I didn't know you can turn off the GIFs and all that. So I was kind of struggling really bad there because I didn't want people to start using money on me, because I felt like you could use that for a better reason. So, but then they did have the option of turning it off. So I was like, oh, great. I can now do TikTok lives, not at the expense of everyone's wallets. So I'm so happy I'm so happy they have an option that you can turn off. So yeah. So anyway, it's getting pretty dark. I think it already is. But it's only 6. Daylight savings, maybe. Goodness, I miss Australia. I really do. I haven't been back ever since COVID. So I feel like every single time I go back, like something's changing. Something's like changing again and again and again. Like it just keeps bloody changing. And I do miss a little bit of my childhood. Yes, darling, I'm in LA. Hi to Brazil. You know what? Speaking of Brazil, I think one of my most memorable shows were at Brazil. I didn't know if I said this to anyone. And I think I was in Brazil, and I think that was when we were in the middle of our tour, and I was just mentally drained. Obviously, shit was happening behind closed doors, but I think that was one of the first moments I switched during tour, and I had such a bad episode that day that I didn't even know if I could go on stage and perform. And I remember we had like a meet and greet before the show, and I remember the fans. I couldn't look so I had to wear shades, I believe. But I remember the fans being extremely intuitive. They were extremely intuitive of how I was, and I've never felt so understood at that point, because you got to understand, it was the first time that I switched on tour, and I felt like the people in Brazil are very, very welcoming and warm, and the energy is just something else. I remember playing that show as half Mito and half myself, and I just remember I think that it was a moment where I was extremely succumbed by emotions because of how warm it felt inside that place. And that was, again, one of my most memorable experiences. And then, obviously, Mexico was, again, that was I think, one of my favorite cities. I got some downtime to go outside and hang out, and we met a lovely friend that showed us the whole of that city, and it was by fate that me, John, Eddie, and Miguel, our bodyguard at the time, we ran into like a great friend of mine. Well, now she's a really good friend of mine, and she showed us around, and it was quite interesting because I've never really got to experience it like that, so I had such a good time there too, but now I don't know, like I'm kind of I don't know, I wonder what it'll feel like if I went back on tour and I went back to see you guys. Would you guys come out again and see this, I guess, a bigger stunt, because now I think a lot of the fans now also have a bigger and deeper understanding of the artistry that I'm putting out. What was so funny is me and my team, especially me and Chunyong, our stylist, we've always talked about how much can we tell our fans, and once our fans really understand who Mito is and who Mr. Insanity is, we always like to make a joke later on when we go on show. Fans will probably want to guess who's on that stage. Is it Mito, or is it Insanity, or is it Ian? And funny enough, my team knows the difference because they already have been seeing this and that. So they have more information on it. They were accessible to more resources on that term. So they already knew who I was going up as. But to now fans, when they see it, it'll be like a bit of a guessing game, really. But again, I think I'm going to make that a little bit more prominent. So just because it's a lot more fun, so that could be quite interesting. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so yeah, I can't wait to see you guys again, and I can't wait to really just be there for you guys. I loved all of Asia. I loved obviously Europe was amazing. I tell you, that crowd is something else. And now I really want to start going to a lot of these different places. Like I remember even like going to Peru was one of the biggest things that I wanted to do, because Peru was one of the places, the first place that I went by myself and backpacked, and I'll never forget that moment because it was just it was a life-changing experience, putting yourself out there, and I healed so much from that trip that I had to go back. So I went back again. I walked the same Inca trail, and I went to Machu Picchu, landed at Cusco, and it was better the second time. And then I went to do a show there, and we ended up being on the news. That was crazy because we landed at the airport, and we didn't know what all these big cameras were doing, and my goodness, they welcomed us with open arms, and we were on the news, and it was so much fun. It was such good times. I can't believe that was just last year. Can you believe it? Can you believe tour was last year? I can't believe it. I can't believe tour ended with the Korean show. 한국에서 끝난 게 잊혀지지가 않는데
진짜 이번 연도에 한국 단콘을 와 그때 끝났다고? 이번 연도였다고? Sorry, I started talking in Korean there. Wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe it wasn't even that long ago. It felt like ages. What the hell happened? Wow. So yeah, that was another interesting thing, you know. What else? What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah. Oh man. There's a lot of things that I think still need a bit of sorting out here and there, but in due time, I would love to visit more countries. You know, I do want to make it a bit of a passion project of mine that I want to go out to. Later on, I want to go out to a lot of remote areas that fans don't really have access to. That like obviously the bigger countries, the bigger cities. Obviously, we're always going to be doing that. But I want to also make it like a little bit of a passion project to go out to remote areas that have like maybe just a few fans there, and give a performance there too, because I think sometimes people aren't accessible to a lot of these places, and you know, for me, I don't even give a shit. I don't care if we make. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, but I don't care if I don't make any profit margin from this. I might fuck it. I'll use my own money to go. I want to do that later on. Just you know, I've always felt it was a lot more intimate sometimes when you're in a little room and you only have a few fans or a few people that can be in reach, and you know, it's just a little cozy little moment for you guys to enjoy and you know, sing along and stuff like that. I love the big shows. I love the big spotlights and the, you know, the big, like, I don't know, the extravagant moments as well. But I also learned to understand that sometimes it's also about having the more intimate type of shows, and I've always wanted to do that because I fell in love with stuff like that when I was a kid. I went to like these local lounge, I guess you could call jazz cafes or something. You know, it's so funny. My dad used to take me here and there, but you know, I used to go there and I was just I felt everyone was so damn cool, and you know, like there's some magic to that. Just having it. I mean, I didn't have any wine or anything because I was a bit too young, but you know, I had my little apple juice or what you could call it, and I just loved watching people perform. And I thought one day, if I had the chance, I would love to do that for people. You know, I would love to just, I don't know. And another thing, because people said something. If I ended up being a Spotify #1 artist, congratulations. Goodness, we did it. We did it. I can't believe it. I can't believe I can't believe that I could even be that person to you. It's quite amazing to really think how much DPR has come, and how much I get to now know you guys. It's quite crazy, and this would never have happened if I didn't go through what I went through the way I did. So I think if I'm on your top artist of Spotify, thank you so much. Thank you dearly. I promise I'll keep making it till when I can. And maybe you guys could keep making some awesome edits. Because I love watching edits and I love watching reaction videos. I really do. Speaking of, I think I did something with a special YouTube content creator, and that should be quite insightful and that should be quite fun. So I had a lot of fun doing that too. So yes, so keep an eye out for that too, and an eye out for something else that's going to come out pretty soon. Oh god, okay, I'm not going to spoil it too much. But anyway, Dear Insanity is in your top 1 album. Thank you so much. I love Dear Insanity. I really do. But you know what's so funny? So I think people are more familiar with Murder, but you have to also give Mr. Insanity a chance too, because it's gonna take some time to get used to. we took about 3 years to get used to Mito, so I think we're gonna give some shine to Insanity here and there. So again, the law's not finished. It's just beginning. And what do you call it? Skins. Yes. I'm sorry. I think I will want to obviously master and mix it and put it out as some type of form. But the beauty in skins is how raw and uncut and really untouched it is. I immediately know for a fact that I want to make it more accessible to like streaming platforms. That'll be the only way I would ever mix it or master it. But I already know, like, if I do that too, I think people are gonna. I already see the comments. People are gonna be like, "I like the raw better because of because of how much it now assimilates and means something to this period, to this state period." Yeah. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain freeze there. So yeah, I'll constantly try working on developing my music taste and skills, and you know, it's still in development. I only know what I can hear, and I only know what I can. I can do what I know. My God, my brain is absolutely fried right now. I only can do what I know. I only can do what I know. So again, I only know how to express myself at that certain moments. I don't think I've ever apologized for how I felt. Neither should you, honestly. Don't apologize about how you feel, but then don't let it succumb you to the point where you do something irrational, right? Stop yourself there. You don't want to live with permanent scars just over a 5-minute irrational combustion of something that you can't contain. I always say don't let yourself get to that point, but then again, who am I to tell you? You know, you probably have to go there once, or maybe twice, or maybe 3 times to really know. And again, it's completely fine, you know. So yeah, thank you guys. I just want to say thank you. You know, the whole point of coming on was really just to thank you guys for Spotify actually. But yeah, it was such an amazing journey. It's still forever going to be. And for everyone that's just new here, that's coming out and is a newcomer, I welcome you dearly. You're free to stay, free to go, but for what it's worth, I do want to have our community, our dreamers, really stick together. You know, I think the one thing about proudest thing that I'm the most proud of our fandom is because we're so intuitive and we're so in touch with ourselves. And I think more so it's because of that level of sensitivityness. I think you're well aware of a lot of things. Therefore, you can be very well aware of knowing how to bond with people, and you know, I think understanding is a big thing. And you might think right now, for those that might think you feel troubled or you feel broken. Again, I'm right there with you, Abe. I'm right there with you. But if we're gonna get through this, we're gonna get through it together. So, as long as you don't put your what do you call it? Your ropes down, I won't put mine down. Right? So likewise, I expect you to meet me halfway. Okay? So, thank you. I love you all dearly. Right? And make sure to smile a bit. You know, you don't have to smile. We could try forcing it sometimes. But who knows, that might be a little bit scary too. So you got to make sure your smile looks somewhat unhinged, right? Anyway, love you all. I think that was one of the most longest lives I've ever been doing. I've been talking so much that my brain is like, back it up a little, back it up. But hey, Skins, go listen to it. 그리고 뭐라고 해야지? Dear Insanity. We're not done yet. I love you all.